Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be switching gears a bit. We usually talk about tech and business and culture, but today we're going somewhere that's fundamental to all of us, really: biology. Now, before you click away thinking this is just going to be about, dusty textbooks and memorizing cell parts and things like that, I promise you this deep dive is going to be a bit different.
Yeah.
We're going beyond that surface level to really uncover how research is actually revolutionizing how we think about teaching and learning about life itself.
Absolutely.
And trust me, some of these findings are pretty surprising.
Yeah, definitely.
So the material we're looking at today, it comes from a research paper that really digs into all the latest trends in biology education.
Okay.
And the researchers, they kick things off with a question that really got me thinking. And it was this: with all this research out there on how to teach biology effectively, is it actually making a difference?
Yeah, good question.
Are things actually changing in classrooms? Is the public understanding these really crucial concepts any better than they were before all this research?
Right. And that's a huge question because even just understanding what biology is can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
You see, biology, it's not always about hard and fast rules like we see in some of the other sciences.
Okay.
Like physicist Erwin Schrödinger. He actually said that living matter, it has this unique complexity that physics alone can't fully explain. And then you've got biologist Ernest Mayr. He emphasized how much of biology actually deals with probability.
Really?
Not certainty. And then you bring in the idea of purpose in nature. Oh, man.
A whole other can of worms there.
It gets really complex in a way that makes it difficult to teach and to learn.
Yeah, I can see that. So what you're saying is it's not enough to just memorize a textbook definition of, let's say, photosynthesis.
Right.
We need to understand how science actually figures this stuff out in the first place.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Knowing the names of all the different parts of a car doesn't mean that you understand how the engine works.
Right.
Same with biology.
Yeah.
We need to understand the engine of biological investigation.
I like that.
How we know what we know.
Yes.
Just as much as the parts list of all the facts.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So it's not just about memorization. It's about building a much deeper understanding of how science actually works, especially in a field that's as complex as biology.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this brings us to the first surprising trend that the research revealed in the paper.
Okay.
You'd think that the most heavily researched areas of biology would then be the ones that are, emphasized the most when we're teaching it.
Right. Yeah.
But that's not always the case, is it?
It really isn't.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, while there's tons of research on teaching evolution, which is obviously crucial,
Right.
there's a surprising lack of in-depth research when it comes to other topics.
Okay.
We're talking things like cell biology, metabolism,
Oh, wow.
and even certain aspects of human biology,
Yeah.
like our immune and nervous systems.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. That is unexpected. I can even remember back in school, I feel like we kind of just breezed through some of those topics.
Yeah.
I wish we had dug a little deeper now, especially given how relevant they are to our own health and well-being.
Right. It makes you wonder how our understanding of these really critical areas might be different if they receive the same level of research and attention as, like you said, evolution. And this isn't just academic. This has real implications for how we make decisions about our own health, how we understand our own bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of unexpected findings, let's talk about genetics for a second.
Yep.
It's a topic that I think a lot of people, it can feel kind of intimidating, with all the Punnett squares, complex inheritance patterns.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as this very linear kind of subject to learn, but the research suggests maybe we should be shaking things up a bit, huh?
Absolutely. There's a growing body of research that suggests that teaching molecular genetics before we delve into Mendelian genetics,
Okay.
the kind with the Punnett squares,
Right.
might actually be more effective.
Wait, really? That seems completely counterintuitive. Why would you start with the more complex stuff first?
Well, it's all about building that solid foundation and breaking free from those oversimplifications. Geneticist Michael Dougherty, he argues that by starting with the complexity of how genes actually interact at the molecular level,
Okay.
it can actually help students avoid getting stuck on that classic one gene, one trait myth,
Right.
which we know is very rarely the whole story.
Right, yeah. So instead of memorizing Punnett squares, we should be thinking about how genes are actually expressed and how they're interacting with each other.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. And, it makes you realize how much more there is to genetics than I think we often realize.
Precisely. This is where those aha moments come in. It's about understanding the nuances, the exceptions to the rules, and how those exceptions can actually help us understand the bigger picture of inheritance and genetic variation.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And it actually makes me think about how we talk about things like genetic testing these days.
Right.
It's not just about, tracing a single gene. It's about understanding these complex interactions and probabilities.
Exactly. And it's becoming increasingly clear that this deeper understanding of molecular genetics is essential for us to navigate the modern world.
Yeah.
Everything from personalized medicine to even just understanding the implications of all this genetic research that's coming out.
Absolutely. This deep dive is really making me rethink everything I thought I knew about biology education.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our final sort of surprising trend that we noticed in this research.
Okay.
And it's one that's actually near and dear to my heart, ecology. I think when I think about ecology, I think, strapping on some hiking boots, grabbing a magnifying glass, heading out into nature, really getting that hands-on experience.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
There's really no substitute for experiencing these ecological concepts, like firsthand,
Right.
out in the real world. Fieldwork is an incredibly powerful tool for sparking that curiosity, making those abstract concepts come to life.
But the research suggests that fieldwork alone isn't enough, right?
Right. The research suggests that we need to be pairing those real-world experiences with strategies that directly challenge these common misconceptions that people have about ecosystems.
Okay.
We all have those mental images from textbooks,
Yeah.
but sometimes those images can lead to, oversimplifications.
Oh, absolutely. I bet you a lot of people still picture food chains as this simple straight line.
Right.
A plant gets eaten by a grasshopper, the grasshopper gets eaten by a frog.
Right.
But that's not how ecosystems actually work at all, is it?
Not at all. Ecosystems are so dynamic and interconnected.
Right.
It's way more like a complex web than a simple chain.
Right.
And there are just countless interactions and feedback loops happening all at the same time.
So how do we move beyond these sort of oversimplified mental models? And I know the research paper mentions some interesting studies on this. What are some of the approaches that they're looking at?
Yeah, there are some really innovative approaches out there. One study by Mello Silver and their team, they found that even using something as simple as a classroom aquarium, when combined with some interactive technology, actually led to much deeper understanding of the ecosystems than some of the more traditional teaching methods.
A classroom aquarium, that's brilliant. It's like creating a miniature ecosystem right there in the classroom. Did the study say anything about why this approach was so effective?
It's all about creating those aha moments by connecting the dots between the theoretical and the tangible. Students were able to actually observe these interactions between the different species right there in the aquarium. They could track the changes over time.
Wow.
They could even experiment with different variables.
That's so cool.
And it just made those abstract ecological principles much more concrete, much more understandable.
That's a great example of how these even small hands-on experiences can have such a big impact on learning. It's all about making those connections between the concepts and the real world.
Exactly. And it goes back to understanding that nature of science.
Yeah.
In ecology, it's not just about memorizing the names of all these different species or identifying different types of ecosystems.
Right.
It's about understanding how those systems actually function.
Yeah.
How they respond to change and how our actions can have those ripple effects throughout that entire web of life.
It's amazing to me how these seemingly disparate areas of biology, whether we're talking about cell biology, genetics, ecology, they all connect back to this bigger idea of understanding the nature of science itself.
Absolutely.
It's not just about, what we know, it's about how we know it. And I think that's such a powerful takeaway for anyone, really, not just scientists.
I completely agree. It's about equipping people with the tools to think critically about the world around us, to evaluate evidence, and to make informed decisions based on that evidence.
Especially in today's world. I mean, we are constantly bombarded with information from all sides.
All of the time.
It's more important than ever to be able to sift through it all, identify that misinformation, understand the science behind the headlines.
Absolutely. And think about all the issues that we're facing as a global society.
Oh, I know.
Climate change, emerging diseases, genetic engineering, food security. These are all such deeply complex issues.
Yeah.
And they have these biological underpinnings.
They do.
And without that solid understanding of the science that's involved, it's easy to feel overwhelmed
Oh, yeah, for sure.
or to make decisions based on, fear rather than facts.
Absolutely. That's where I think this research on biology education, it becomes so crucial. It's not just about memorizing facts for a test.
Right.
It's about empowering individuals to actually engage in these really critical conversations.
Yes.
And to advocate for those evidence-based solutions.
Absolutely. And that's where I think each of us has a role to play in this.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a scientist or an educator,
Right.
you can still seek out those opportunities to learn more about biology, challenge your own assumptions, and support those initiatives that promote science literacy.
I love that. So it's not just about changing the way that biology is taught in the classrooms. It's about fostering this lifelong love of learning
Exactly.
and this deeper appreciation for the natural world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating that sense of wonder and curiosity and recognizing that science, it's this ongoing process of discovery.
This whole conversation has really got me thinking. If I could wave a magic wand and redesign biology education, where would I even begin?
Oh, wow.
What would I want every student, every person to walk away understanding about biology?
That's a fantastic question. I think for me, it all kind of boils down to fostering critical thinking,
Okay.
encouraging, a healthy skepticism,
Yeah.
and nurturing that sense of wonder about the natural world.
I love all of that. What would that actually look like in practice, though? What kind of learning experiences would truly be transformative, do you think?
Well, imagine a biology classroom that feels less like a lecture hall and more like a laboratory of ideas,
Okay.
where students are encouraged to ask those tough questions, design experiments, challenge their own assumptions. A classroom where failure is seen as a stepping stone to deeper understanding, and where collaboration and communication are valued just as much as individual achievement.
I love that image. A place where students really feel empowered to explore the natural world, make their own discoveries, and really see themselves as active participants in that scientific process.
Yes, exactly. And it's not just about what happens within the four walls of a classroom either.
Right.
Imagine if biology education extended beyond the textbooks, beyond the lectures, incorporating things like field trips to local ecosystems.
Yeah, get them outside.
Citizen science projects that actually contribute to real-world research.
Love it.
And even just opportunities to engage with actual scientists and researchers in their own communities.
That's a vision I can get behind, for sure. Breaking down those barriers between, the so-called ivory tower of academia and the everyday lives of people.
Yeah, because this isn't...
Because biology...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, biology, it's not some abstract concept.
Right.
It's the air we breathe.
Yes.
It's the food we eat. It's this intricate web of life that sustains all of us.
It's everything.
Yeah.
And the more we understand about that web of life,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to protect it, to preserve it, and to ensure a healthy, thriving planet for generations to come.
Beautifully said. Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into this fascinating world of biology education. We hope this episode has sparked your curiosity, challenged some assumptions, and maybe even inspired you to see the world around you with fresh eyes.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop learning.